Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Where we're going to start today's show. It is obviously beautiful Ann Arbor, Michigan, with the game, the rivalry, and a rivalry in a game that had as much at stake with as much off-the-field noise as any time in the history of Ohio State, Michigan. Number 2 versus number 3. Winner wins the Big Ten East. Winner has an inside track to the college football playoff. Just got to beat Iowa in the Big Ten championship next year. For the loser, you get none of it. You're out of the playoff picture. You're not winning the Big Ten. You're not winning the Big Ten East. And oh, by the way, on top of all that, we had a little sign-stealing scandal that has been surrounding Michigan for months now. No Jim Harbaugh on the sidelines. We know about all that. And so I bring it up because it felt like there was as much at stake in this game as any that has ever been played between Ohio State and Michigan. Just one problem if you're an Ohio State fan. This one felt a lot like the 2022 version of the game and 2021 version of the game, as Michigan beats Ohio State 30-24 in a game where Michigan dominated the trenches late. Ohio State didn't have the answers late. And this one, even without Jim Harbaugh, felt very much the same. Congrats to Michigan for a third straight win in this series, for a third straight Big Ten East title. For Ohio State, a lot of questions, and I'll be blunt, a lot of heat on Ryan Day coming into this one. And listen, we could go through, the whole song and dance of everything that happened in the second quarter, and in the fourth quarter, this happened. In the third quarter, there was that. What we need to talk about and what we need to know. Everybody knows where this game was ultimately decided, okay? Ohio State scores a touchdown with about 8 minutes to go, and you feel like, okay, there is actually momentum. The score is 27-24. Michigan does lead, but if Ohio State can get Michigan off the field, they're going to get the ball back with as good of a chance as any to win this game and to end this 2-game losing streak. There's just one problem. Michigan gets the ball back, and Michigan basically did exactly what they've done over the last couple years. They get the ball back, and they start running it left, and they start running it right, and they give it to Blake Corum, and they give it to Donovan Edwards, and all of a sudden you look up, and it is a 13-play drive that takes 8 minutes off the clock, or 7 minutes off the clock. Excuse me. They got the ball back with 8 minutes left. Ohio State gets the ball back with just over a minute to go. Michigan ends up kicking a field goal, but they get 2 first downs, 13 plays, as I said. 9 of those plays were rushing plays. You take 7 minutes off the clock. Ohio State forced to burn all of their timeouts, and then Ohio State gets the ball back. And again, it looks a lot like the last few years. Confusion, can't make the big play when they're supposed to. You have Gus Johnson calling for Marvin Harrison to get the ball. He gets the ball. The next play, you complete a pass to Julian Fleming. You very luckily, it was stripped. It easily could have been recovered. It is recovered instead by Ohio State. And then, of course, the final play where Kyle McCord throws an interception. So Michigan ends up winning the game 30-24. But again, this one felt a lot like the last 2 years, where when it came to crunch time, when it was late, when it mattered most, Michigan was the more poised team, the more composed team. They were able to control the line of scrimmage. They were able to pick up first downs. Ohio State did not have any answers. And oh, by the way, they seal the win when Ohio State makes a mistake. Credit to Michigan, credit to Sherrone Moore. I think I have 2 big takeaways. We'll get to both. But the big takeaway, number 1, credit to Sherrone Moore, because I thought he coached very conservatively in his first 2 games of this suspension, Penn State and Maryland. This game, he opened it up, was a lot more aggressive, was a lot more fearless. Donovan Edwards had a deep pass that set up a field goal. So credit to Sherrone Moore. But listen, we know what the story is. As for the third straight year, Ryan Day loses again. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, is he facing some heat. Now, let's be honest here. First of all, let's call a spade a spade. This isn't all on Ryan Day. This was a very good game between 2 very good teams, and one team had to lose, and that sucks, right? And in this 14 playoff era, this is why we love college football. The loser knows what's at stake. The loser knows what matters. A year from now, guess what? We have an 18-team Big Ten. If these 2 teams come into this game undefeated, they're going to play the next week in the Big Ten championship. We're going to remove divisions. And more importantly, we're going to have 12 teams making the college football playoff. So for Ohio State, you just regroup, you get ready for the playoff. You're probably going on the road. You got to go to a second place Pac-12 team or whatever it would be. And you go on the road, you try to win and whatever. But that isn't the stakes this year. And so when I look at this game, it falls out a couple things. One, Jim Knowles, $2+ million a year defensive coordinator, second year in a row. You can't get stops when you need them. And listen, one thing about me, if you've never listened to the show, if you listen every day, I don't claim to be scheme expert guy, but when they're running the ball right at you in the biggest moments of the season, and again, this goes to what we're going to talk about with Ryan Day in a minute. Nobody cares about what the defense does against whoever, Minnesota last week, Michigan State the week before, Indiana, Rutgers, Purdue. It matters what you do in the biggest games, in the biggest moments. Jim Knowles, $2 million a year defensive coordinator. He could not get Michigan off the field in under 7 minutes when it mattered most. So part of it's on him, but to me, part of it is on Ryan Day. And let's get into the Ryan Day element of it because I've been critical of this guy for years. I'm going to continue to be critical of him because when I look at this situation, this falls on the head coach. I keep saying it. I just said it with Jim Knowles. Let's take it up a level with Ryan Day. Ryan Day's paid $9 million a year. And his defenders and his detractors and the casuals and the people that don't really know college football, what they say, well, he's 56-7 overall. What do you think? Is a terrible coach? No, I don't think he's a terrible coach. But what I do think is when you were at Ohio, first of all, what is essentially indisputable, this guy inherited the best situation in the history of college football. 2018, basically a national championship caliber team from 2018 into 2019 post Urban Meyer. Justin Fields, Chase Young, Jeff Okudah, you go on and on down the list. But even beyond that year where they didn't win the college football playoff, the last 3 years, even beyond the last 3 years, you're paid $9 million a year to win the big games, and he simply isn't doing it. And what's disappointing to me is a couple things. One, the same problem that has plagued his team the last 2 years in the biggest moments plagued him again. When they needed to get stops, when they needed to get off the field, when they needed somebody to make a play, all those 5 stars, JT Tuimoloau, Sonny Styles, Tommy Eichenberg, who's healthy for the first time in weeks. I'm not blaming any individual player. It's on the head coach. It's on the defensive coordinator. But nobody makes a play. Nobody steps up. Nobody does something. Nobody creates havoc in the way that Michigan did, by the way. Remember, Michigan's final 2 defensive plays. Strip that was eventually recovered by Ohio State. And then, of course, beyond that, the interception would seal the victory. Ohio State has none of that. And again, it falls on the coordinator, but it falls on the head coach. Nobody cares that you beat Indiana. Nobody cares that you beat Rutgers. That's what you're supposed to win that game by 50 as the head coach at Ohio State. Okay. And what you're also supposed to do, why you're paid the big bucks, you're paid $9 million a year to beat Michigan, go to the Big Ten championship, win the Big Ten championship, and compete for national championships. Everybody understands you can't win every single game every single year. That's impossible. It's never happened anywhere. Not for Nick Saban, not for Urban Meyer, not for whatever. But you got to win the games that matter, and you got to win the games that matter more often than not. Instead, in the last 3 years, here's the bottom line. Ryan Day is 0-3 against Michigan with 0 Big Ten championships, 1 college football playoff appearance, 0 college football playoff wins, and that last stat you don't think is changing at all. By the way, 0 Big Ten championship game appearances. That falls on the head coach, who he does and what he's about. I think what's disappointing is, as I said, in those big moments, they couldn't get those stops. But in the big moments, I didn't think Ryan Day had his best game. Started on the first drive of the game. Inside Michigan territory, you decide to punt. And listen, I love Joel Klatt, but he's saying, oh, it's the right move. It's this, it's that. No, it's not. Set the tone. Go for it. 4th and 1. Kyle McCord, put your head down. Get the first down. Travion Henderson, put your head down. I've been hearing for a year about how much tougher you are and how this is different. And you're yelling at Lou Holtz because Lou Holtz called you soft. And then it's time to prove it on the biggest stage in front of us, probably 20 million people in that audience that were watching this game across the country. You have the chance on the first drive and you don't do it. And so this falls on Ryan Day. And again, I'll stop saying this because it's I'm beating a dead horse here. You're paid to beat Ohio. You're paid to beat Michigan. You're paid to win the Big Ten East. You're paid to win the Big Ten. You're paid to compete for national championships. He has done none of that over the last 3 years, and that falls on him. And here's the crazy part. I don't want to say he's missed his best window because this is Ohio State and you're always going to have incredible talent. But think about the talent that he has had the last 3 years. CJ Stroud at quarterback the last 2 years. Marvin Harrison the last 3 years. Garrett Wilson for a year. Chris Olave for a year. Jackson Smith and Jigba. JT Tuimoloau. All these great players. Paris Johnson was a first-round pick. You have 0 wins over Michigan, 0 Big Ten title game appearances, 0 Big Ten championships, 0 college football playoff games to show for it. And so listen, the one thing I'm not going to do, I'm not going to say that you fire Ryan. Like that's not what this is about. But what it is about is he deserves every piece of heat that he is ultimately getting. Because at the end of the day, when you get taken a big boy job like Ohio State, you're paid to get big boy wins in games that matter. By the way, it's not just me that feels that way. It's interesting. I don't know if anybody else saw this besides me. See what Maurice Clarett tweeted out, former Ohio State legend. And I know he doesn't, Ohio State fans are going to get in the mentions and get mad at me for even referencing this. But Maurice Clarett tweeted this. He said, when you pay someone $9 million a year, you can have high expectations. Did he delete it? Oh, no. Did he delete it? Let me see. Hold on. Let me find this. Let me find his tweet that he put out. He said, let me find this tweet. Ryan, this is what it was. He sent this out on Saturday afternoon. He said, Ryan Day, love you, bro, but gotta go. This is why you're paid millions. Can't get paid $9 million and lose 3 straight to Michigan. He goes on and on and on. He goes, nobody cares about beating the BS teams we schedule. We play those teams on purpose to have a good record to get to Michigan and into the playoffs. That's part of the program. You don't make $9 million and lose to your rival 3 times in a row. So credit Maurice Clarett for saying what a lot of Ohio State fans feel and what I have been arguing for years. So we'll see what happens. I'm not saying fire Ryan Day, but what I am saying is he deserves every ounce of criticism that he is getting today. Want to talk about the Michigan perspective, but wanted to focus on Ryan Day because at the end of the day, this falls on him. He's the head coach. He's got to be better. Credit to Michigan. Credit to Sharon Moore, who, by the way, you want the craziest stat out of everything? Sharon Moore now has as many wins against in the rivalry, in the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry, as Ryan Day does. Ryan Day is now 1-3. One game got canceled. Sharon Moore is 1-0. Congrats to Michigan. We'll talk about them momentarily, but this falls on Ryan Day, dude. You're 0-3 in the last 3. You're paid $9 million to win the games that matter, and you simply did not.